Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we've got a big dog in. We previewed this one a little while ago, and a lot of folks are interested in seeing how to service this one, so we'll do that on the video today. This one is the Penn International II 30SW, and it's a nice big reel for trolling for big fish. It's not the current generation, it's a little bit older, but we're going to show you how to take this one apart, how to service it, and well, how to keep it fishing. It is a 2-speed reel, and it is a lever drag reel. So we'll do that for you. And if you like these types of videos, if you like to see how these reels are made, understand how they are used, and well, generally get to improve your knowledge of fishing reels and fishing in general, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe, please use that notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting. And well, you can see if that's a reel or a topic you would like to learn more about. I start by removing the exterior pieces. That's the lockdown screw for the handle retainer, the nut retainer, I guess. And when you take these pieces and parts off, I always recommend that you take pictures. My pictures are the video as a reference, but you don't need to do videos. You can use your phone or whatever image capture device you may have, and well, that'll help you to understand where the orientation is of the pieces and parts if you get lost during the reinstall. I'm going to try and do this one by memory. I haven't gone out and done the schematics for the reels or anything, but if I get stuck, I will go to the mysticparts.com website. They have most of the schematics for Penn reels, and I'll pick one up if I need to. Notice on this one that this is a beveled insert here for a flathead screw. One side is not, one side is. That bevel faces up and accommodates the taper in the lockdown screw. This next step is to remove the handle nut, and this also has the plunger for the change of gears. So when you take this out, just make sure you're aware of it. If you for some reason needed to change the plunger piece, there is an E-clip here that holds that end on. Again, I like to take these pieces and parts, put them into a parts tray, and I like to organize in the corners of my trays sub-assemblies. Just makes it easier to find when it does come time for the reinstall. Okay, with that off, well, the handle helped me with it off all by itself. When you take the pieces and parts off, make sure you go ahead and clean them at some point in the service. And my points in this service is, well, I like to do them just as they come off. That way, when it's time to reinstall, I'm not stopping to do some further cleaning. This reel is very clean. Anthony sent it in. I believe he got the reel off of eBay. And asked me to go through it, do the basic service to it, make sure that everything is okay before he takes it fishing. So that's what we're doing today. There's a collar that goes under the handle, and well, that's all that's needed at this point from the gear side. This is an older style reel, so it's a different setup for your preset adjuster and your lever, but these need to be removed in order to remove the side plate. This does not come out by itself. You need to remove these 3 screws from the side plate in order to do that. And if you needed to change that big preset adjuster, well, there's an E-clip on the back of this that's holding that in place. Whenever I start disassembling the reel or working on that reel, I make sure that the lever drag is in the free spool position. And of course, I like to test the reel before I do the service on it when it comes in, because I want to see if there's any issues that I can identify and make sure that I address when before I start the service. So it would be a shame to realize that, oh, there's a grind going on or something, and maybe you don't focus on that while you're doing the service. If you pre-test before, you kind of know. Now, of course, a lot of my service business comes in by mail, and we do have conversations before the reels arrive usually by email, and somebody will tell me I had it out trolling, there's a skip in the reel, or the drag's not holding, or things like that. So it kind of clues you in on what you should be looking for. But sometimes they just show up for a basic service, and it's always a good idea to get into the routine of doing the pre-test, just so you're for sure. All right, this whole plate's going to come off now. On the back here, you're going to see this is the alignment for your inner ramp that's going to adjust. This is that big C-clip I was talking about. If you need to pop this button off, just push this back and out, and that will free up that button. Again, we'll do the same thing on the inside. Wheel's been cleaned on the outside. It was an eBay piece, and somebody did a nice job of cleaning the externals. One of the things they didn't do, of course, was take the wheel off and apart, nor do they need to. Okay, this is your free spool lever arm. This is a good place for a picture as well. You want to see two things on this. The first one is the location of the lever. Now, of course, we're in free spool here. Notice on the inner side where that lever intersects with the adjuster, there are two tabs. So these tabs are kind of facing at 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock. That's important when and if you pop that out to make sure that they're in that orientation. And this is currently adjusted where it's kind of about noon, right? Noon and 6 on the up and down. Now, if you change your pieces, if pieces fall off, whatever, you'll have that picture there to tell you or remind you this is the way it was set up when you took it off. There is a Teflon ring behind that, and that's all you need to take off on this side. The other piece comes out from inside behind the bearing, and well, if it falls out, which it usually does, you'll know where that belongs. In the meantime, we'll just clean the old grease off of that using a paper towel. I like to use the paper towels versus a cotton rag or a micro cloth or something like that, because I don't want to reuse those cloths and transfer over any dirt and contaminants that may have been there. I'm going to take the guide ring for the lever drag off next. And when I do that, you want to note that there are two collars behind that ring, and you don't want to lose them. So what I like to do is take them out, put them right on that screw. You're going to have two long screws, and you're going to have one short screw. That's the one down here. That one does not come with a collar, but you do want to identify where it is. And again, pictures will help when it's time to reinstall. That's the shorter screw. And I'll just pick another corner of my parts tray for this one. Okay, we've got the screw off, we've got the collar off. This one's longer than the other side, so this is where pictures help. The longest screw is the one that goes through the crossbar here. Okay, I'm going to leave that all together just so that it reminds me that that's the position for it, and it also is holding that collar together. Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more screws to go. So let's take those out. Make sure you match the blade on your screwdriver to the slot in the screw. Using something that's too narrow risks damaging the threads and the slots, butterflying them, and well, you may just not be able to get them back in. When I take these off now, I'm doing the same thing. I'm laying them on my table. I want to make sure that all of these are the same length. We just saw a situation there where 3 screws for that ring are all different sizes. You want to make sure that all of these screws are the same size. If they're not, you want to mark the location for them. Well, the one on this side is longer. One more screw and that whole side plate will come off now. And this is making me wonder, I think when this reel was last serviced, I think this one belongs up top here. When I pull this side off now, we're going to check. Yeah. So last time this was serviced, somebody didn't note that the longer one has to go through here, just like the longer one on this side, with that ring goes through. So somebody didn't do what I've been suggesting on the last one. Put the screw in the shorter screw where the long one belongs. And what that means is you don't have the same amount of grip into the frame up top there. So you want to make sure that that gets all solid, taken care of. Okay, we've got the 3 short screws and the long screw. I'm going to put those into my parts tray. You just saw me pull out the axle shaft, and yeah, it's time to be serviced. There's a lot of old grease in that on here. So use your paper towel to pull that off. And you can go a whole different set of ways. There's no, this needs to be done first and this needs to be done second in terms of a sub-assembly. You can go over and service the spool now. You can go over and service the main gear side of this. It really doesn't matter which one you attack next. You just need to service all of them. I'm just using a pick now to clean out what little grease is in the slots there. Notice, if you haven't already, that there are 2 of these tension washers that go next to the assembly in the back here, and that this is your pinion gear assembly, and that's a single piece. I'm going to use a little bit of penetrating oil here just to dissolve some of that grease. I'm going to go back to the pick and just pull that through the teeth. Now, buying reels on eBay, well, it's not the Wild West it used to be, but it is buyer beware. A lot of times folks will tell you, you know, recently serviced, and then you open up a reel like this and reel really hasn't been recently serviced. I'm not saying that that's what they said in this description, but you just need to be aware of it. And if you have the time, if you've purchased a reel on eBay and you intend to make it your daily driver kind of a thing, if you have the time, it doesn't hurt to open it up and do a cleaning on it. Their ideas of recent, well, that's kind of a variable term, right? Recent history is years, right? All right, let's see what we can do here now. If I recall on this one, we want to take the 3 screws of this off, and then we should have an ability to push that through. It's been a while. I probably should go get the schematic for that. Maybe I will. Let's see where this takes me. Be careful with these. You may even want to take a moment and spray these with the penetrating oil. If you snap one of these off, it's kind of tough. And these are very small screws. These are like the screws that go into the Jigmaster frame. They're very small. You can see here it's not a big screw at all. And just be careful with those. I'm just concentrating here. I don't want to snap this. Finding another corner of my parts tray for that. But while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this reel, or any reel, if you want to leave those questions in the comments section, I will try to answer those for you. Okay, that's the 3rd one of the retainer. You saw the other piece falls down now. Okay, took a break just to get the schematic to make sure that that's all there, just in case I need it. And the next thing to do is remove the center pin then. Now this pin has a retainer for the 2-speed operation. There's 2 pins in here. When you go to remove this, make sure that you're in the low gear, and then you should simply be able to pull this out. And I've gone ahead and I've loosened the 2 pieces here to get that full assembly out. So you can see the pins on both sides here. Be careful with these. There are 2 separate pins. One is on here and here. That's the speed retainers. You need to make sure you don't lose those. We'll set that to the side. I'm going to do mop up here now, clean the inner case. And again, you can use a WD-40 or some other penetrating oil to get rid of the old dirt and debris. And we were talking about the eBay things. You know it hasn't been serviced. And again, you want to take your time, especially if you're going to be using this for trolling big fish. You want to make sure that, well, there's nothing in here that's going to cause the reel to fail at some point. Test your bearing while you're at it. The easiest test of a bearing, just use your finger, make sure the inner race is turning free and easy. And we haven't touched the adjuster over here, so we're going to think that the adjuster, when we reinstall, is going to be fine. All right, just mop up the rest of this. Now these pins, I believe, pull out. Just want to check. I'm going to put the cap back in. Yeah, so put your cap back in and retract so that you can bring the gear over the top. Then note the orientation on the gear. I'm holding those pins. Note the orientation on the gears. I'll let that go back in for a moment. You have two sets of gears here. There's a set of studs that are going to match into the main gear when it's in that low gear position. You want to check, clean your gears. Notice that the one with the recess, that's where we removed the plate from. Come over and clean the top end gear. So this is your low gear. And high gear setup. Low, high. All right, clean your teeth. I'm going to use a hard brush for that to pull through. So the high is a bigger gear. It means that you'll have more revolutions on that pinion gear per turn. The low gear is a smaller gear, which will give you more torque, but will not give you high speed. That's our main gears clean. Let's get rid of the dirt and debris in the channels here. Okay, then remember the orientation. The orientation is this one goes in first, followed by the other. So I'm going to take a moment here to grease the teeth of the gears. We can kind of do a reinstall here. There is a tie down. There's two tie down clips that are on that case that I did not remove. And I did not remove the click mechanism either. Click is kind of primitive. It's a little ball bearing running inside of a lever over here on the case. Let's see if I can get it on the case here. You do not need to remove that, and all it's going to do is it's going to hit the spokes of the click ring on the spool. All right. Make sure this is nice and clean. Bring the first one over. Bring the second one over. Remember, that's the one with the indentation. So it nests like that. I'm going to use that button again to reset. That will retract the those pins. And enable you to bring your main gear down. It's Same principle will happen when we go to put this back into the case itself. Let's go do that now. Light coating of grease onto the main shaft. Get those little bit of dirt left here. So much about real repair is just taking care of the dirt and grease and debris, getting rid of the old oils and greases, and then just simply re-lubing. I'm going to oil the bearings. Some folks like to grease. I don't use the grease on the bearings because of the way that it traps the dirt and debris and holds it. All right, bring that back in. I'm just going to put that button on there now to hold it. And then I'm going to swing these retention clips around again. Place them in position and tighten this down. Do the same on the other side. And we can turn it from the outside, make sure that everything's turning. And your shaft is turning at this point. Now what we want to do now is bring that plate over that we took off. Place that back on. I just push that button in now so that I can align it and hold it flush to the inner gear tie down. We have those 3 very small screws. And for those of you that watch the channel, you know me and these small screws, well, we don't play well together. Take your time, make sure that they're lined up. Again, you have a very slim margin of error here in terms of getting this, so don't cross strip them. Take your time, make sure that they're seated, and well, get them done. There you go. Well, that's the gear side. Now, if you have the single speed reel, it's easy because you don't have those 2 little pins that change your gears. So on your single speed reel, you're just going to pop this main shaft right out. On the 2-speed, you do need to use that little shift button for the speed control there to retract or push those pins in. All right, there we go. All right, now we turned it. We should have a nice turning gear, which we do, and well, we'll leave it at that for the moment. Okay, here's that primitive system I was talking about. That's your click ratchet there. You can see the race that's been scarred, and also noticing we have 2 more of these tension washers that didn't come out when we pulled that axle shaft out, so I'm going to take care of those right now. These are bevel washers. They're not flat washers, and typically you mount them opposite. So you'll take the first one, bevel up, then bevel down, bevel up and bevel down. You'll have a space between the 2. That's for the sensitivity on the lever drag itself. Okay, we should have a bearing here. Clean that off. This is a sealed bearing. It's got a Teflon seal in it. Let's remove the spool then. Take the spool and simply push it out. Again, we've got some cleanup going on the back end of this, where you have a bearing in the case, a very huge bearing in the case. You have the noisemakers. So take a picture here. You have 2 dogs that are your anti-reverse dogs. You have a spring mounted in here that's going to keep the tension on it. This is one of the reasons I don't like to grease the bearings, is because of the dirt you can see accumulating around here. And especially when you're in saltwater reels, a lot of that dirt is micro sands and salts, and that gets into the mechanism itself and clogs it or or worse, erodes the bearings themselves. All right, I'll just take a moment here to polish this up. And if I haven't mentioned so far, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments section, and I do try to answer those for you. It doesn't have to be on this reel. It can be on any fishing reel. Maybe you're working on one and you're stuck. Maybe you didn't take the pictures and you're wondering where the particular pieces and parts go. Just leave that in that comment section. I will try to answer those for you. The next step involves micro screws. There's 4 screws here that are holding on the pressure plate. The case is done, the gear side is done, the axle shaft is done. All we need to do now is get to the inner bearings and check the condition of the drag washers in order to complete that. Alright, then we've got a micro screwdriver here. We're going to take the 4 screws out. Be careful with these, they're real small. If they bounce around, well, you know the consequences of that. Some people get real nervous about these, including myself. If you want to be more comfortable, put this assembly into a gallon-size food storage bag, and that way if the screws drop, it'll drop into the bag, not over on your table or that. I'm just going to be pretty cautious here as I do this. Some of these reels will have a screw cap instead of these smaller screws. You simply unscrew the cap in whatever direction the cap says to unscrew it. Most of the time it's counterclockwise. That's why they tell you to it's clockwise rather than counterclockwise. It's righty-loosey, if you will. 2 more. We'll be able to remove this assembly. So these reels are monster reels for monster fish. They have a great reputation. This is the 2nd generation. I think they're up on generation 5 or 6 now. I've kind of lost a little bit of track in terms of where Penn is. They're all well made. There have been changes in the design, but not terribly. And well, Anthony can rest comfortable. He's got a nice reel here, despite whatever the downside risk is of age. The mechanics are essentially the same. All right, I left those last 2 screws in, so I'll make sure I get those out and in a safe place in a hurry. That's the 3rd, and they're going in the corner of my parts tray. The 4th one seems to be stuck in there, so I think what we'll do is we'll just put the ring in there with that screw. All right, take a picture here. Here's your pressure plate. We've got some old grease on the pressure plate that we can clean off. This pressure plate has ridges in it. That's what's going to be your anti-reverse. On the other side of your pressure plate, we have a drag washer. This one's been lubricated quite a bit. What we want to do with the drag washer now is we want to take a bristle brush and pull it through. That'll get the old greases off. And what you're checking for is to make sure that you have cross hatching on your drag. If you don't have cross hatching, the drag washer is worn, would need to be replaced. And I believe with this particular reel, this one is glued on, so you really need the whole pressure plate assembly. But there's plenty of meat left on this one, and we can see the cross hatching, which is exactly what we want to do. Okay, the only thing inside this reel now are the 2 bearings, and those bearings are sealed. You can for the sake of it, put a little oil on there, but you don't need to go any further with this. You align your pressure plate and washer. This is where the axle shaft comes into play. Let's do that. Light grease into the axle shaft. We've cleaned the teeth on the main gear, or pinion gear rather, so let's get the grease back on that. please only use fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease here, not because it's a Penn reel, but because it's a fishing reel. Don't compromise. Don't improvise. Don't use auto greases and things like that. Use the fishing reel greases. They're relatively inexpensive. This one comes in a large tub, which is one of the reasons why I use it. But you can get smaller quantities of it. And please go ahead and use the fishing reel greases there. Let's take our axle shaft. This is the side where the pinion gear is going to come through. Looks like somebody's trying to reach me. We'll just silence that. Bring your shaft through, merge it through the back end, then sit it onto your desk so that you have a surface to work from. Your spring goes next. Your pressure plate goes on top of that spring. Now you're going to need to compress the assembly as you put that pressure plate back on. So mount your pressure plate over the ring, align your holes, and it may be a blessing that I've had that one screw kind of get stuck in there. If you like, use a pick to hold the alignment. And this takes a little bit of hand strength. When you get the one started, go opposite that. Load the next one. And once you get that in the hole, tighten that one down. And then you can finally relieve the pressure on your hand. Tighten the other one back up on the other side. That ensures when you go 180 degrees apart, that ensures that you have equal pressure. And more importantly, that you my axle shaft just come out here. There you go. 2 more screws. Those of you that know me and small screws, we're not stopping for the video here, so if you want to go grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, go right ahead and do that. This will take another little bit. That's the third one. We got one more. And you know where I'm going for that. I'm going to my parts tray. Again, if you're uncomfortable with this, do this in a gallon bag. That way, if something goes awry, if this little screw kicks out for some reason or whatever, you don't lose it on your table. They are small, they are hard to find. All right, that takes care of the spool side service. Next up then, we can bring our spool back into the main frame and turn it. Turn it back, make sure that as you load the other way, you have the anti-reverse. Next step up then is to take our side plate and mount that. Put a little bit more grease onto the center shaft where it is going to sit through the bearing, and make sure that you haven't rubbed off all the grease on your pinion gear. Let's mount our case then. Check for your screws, that's the orientation you need. And then just match the case in. And then we want to note, remember what we said, there's 3 screws here that are the same length. And we just intuited that the last time this was apart, somebody put a long screw where the short one should have been. And take care of that right now. So that's part 1. Part 2 and part 3 go here, in here. And then we have our trim ring is going to take the 3 different size screws on that one. It's lovely. Okay, 2. And if you're with me still so far, thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed and you're with me so far, you must have an interest in something like this. So please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, use that notification button. Here's the long one we took out of the back bottom. It belongs up here. It needs the extra length to get through that harness lug. That was not put on properly last time. And then next up we have our trim ring, or our slide ring. Remember, we left the one on this side so that we knew that that had a longer screw base. It also has that collar. Let's go ahead and put that back on. We've learned a lot today. One of the things you saw in this one on a 2-speed was an error I made first time I did one of these. I didn't realize those little pins were back there on the shift. And well, you can imagine those 2 little pins went bouncing away. They're only like a ball bearing kind of a thing. So beware when you're doing that those do come out. They are kind of a roller thing, and if something bounces off, you're going to have a hard time finding. Alright, here's your third one now, is the small one. Oops, that's not the small one, this is the small one. The other one is for the tie down. And again, you've taken pictures along the way, so you know if something is missing. Or if you grab a piece like that, say, I don't remember it being that screw. You can go back and reference it in your pictures. And I pulled the schematic, which is a part diagram sort of thing. That will help you with that as well. Alright, we're coming down the home stretch here, if you will. Next up then, we have our retainer ring, or our little washer, if you will, a Teflon piece that's going to help this piece slide. We have a ridge, right, a cut in there. Make sure you put that over your slide ring before you go to mount your slide bar. And remember that our slide bar was mounting in the neutral position. Just like that. So that's your way your piece goes there. We haven't touched the dial on this. If you remove this, you will find that there is a little washer behind here. You can check that if you like. But you need to align this with the slot in your pre-adjuster. Now we haven't touched it, so that shouldn't be an issue. I'm going to remove the cap now because I have to slide that other piece over. Line your big hole, little hole slot, and well, we haven't touched it, so it should pretty much just fall right in. Of course it doesn't, but it's got to be close. So just turn your preset adjuster a little bit one way or another. And I think we've got it now. Something still isn't quite centered. That's because I knocked this off. Okay. Well, whatever you do, don't panic. Take your time. Reset. Redo. I'm gonna hold that down now so I don't knock that off. There we go. I think I just heard it set. Yeah, there you go. We're set now. All right. 3 screws go next. Pick the one in the middle. That way it'll balance your tension. This gives the hands a workout, that's for sure. 2 more, one on each side. And we're kind of coming down the home stretch now. One on the other here. All tight. Cap goes over where the handle will go next. Handle is up. Plunger and handle nut screw. And we're getting close to a test. Tighten this down. Make sure you align the scallop with the hole. You should be able to align pretty correctly after that if you do that. So we're off just a tad. Tie down screw. Empty parts tray. Okay, we are in the neutral position, so we should be able to just spin the reel freely. That's in casting mode, if you will, or trolling mode. We haven't touched that, so we should pretty much have a drag somewhere around the middle of this thing. And we do. And then you can go to full drag. Now, that preset adjuster, we're full tight on here, so that's fine. If you need more or less drag, clockwise is more, counterclockwise is less. There is an oil port on the handle here. We will use an oiler, see if we can't get a little bit of oil in there. That one's pretty much jammed up. The only other thing I would recommend then, if you have that situation, just put a little bit of penetrating oil onto the seam where it meets the handle. Turn it a couple of times, it should loosen it up. It's loosening it up fine. There you go, I'll be spinning in a moment. All right, that's it. So one more time, we want to bring it into free spool. Make sure that your free spool is running. Bring it into first strike. Bring it into second strike or max. This is your clicker. If you want that click in there, or your bait alarm, if you will. And then that's off, and you saw the primitive design on that one. So that's it. That's how to service the Penn Reels International II 30 SW, a 2-speed reel. We didn't check that other speed, did we? Let's push the button in, bring it in. There you go. Push the button in, pull out for the second speed, and that's it. I always recommend when you service these reels, bring them into free spool when you're done. And any adjustments you need to make to the tension on this, make sure you're in free spool while you're doing that. All right, I want to take a moment to thank our police, safety, fire, rescue, EMTs, and the like for everything it is that they do to keep us safe. And I want to thank everybody for staying around, watching this video. Hopefully you've learned from it. We've showed you a couple of tricks along the way. Showed you a little unique thing with the 2-speed where you have to use the compression button to remove those gears. And, well, showed you how to service the reel. I hope you've enjoyed it. I wish everybody a great time on the water, fun fishing, and, well, a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thanks for watching.